My wife called at 2:47 p.m. on an ordinary Tuesday, the kind of day that smells like burnt coffee and paperwork. "Marcus, this isn't working anymore. I want a divorce. From now on, speak to my lawyer." Click. 13 years. Ended with less ceremony than a robocall. I stared at the phone, at the shipping contracts on my desk that suddenly looked like ancient runes. The fluorescent light above me flickered like it had opinions about marriage. Leo, my assistant, poked his head in and asked if I'd seen a ghost. I lied. Family stuff. And sent him away. Calling Isabella went straight to voicemail. Her message was still warm and familiar. The rest of my day was not. The Vanishing Act. That evening, I walked into my Brooklyn apartment and felt the absence before I saw it. No keys on the counter, no purse detonated on the couch. Closet hangers swayed like little gallows. The bathroom counter, barren. She hadn't left. She'd executed a plan. I poured 3 fingers of the good birthday whiskey she'd bought me last month, the one now serving as my abandonment chaser, and sat in the silence. Somewhere in my chest, a careful part of me said, "You're not even surprised." The late nights, the phone calls in the other room, the way she started looking expensive for errands. I opened the laptop, more reflex than plan. Joint checking, credit cards, the numbers read like a confession. Ritz-Carlton, Boston. 8:47s last Friday when I was home with Netflix and lo mein. Tiffany & Co., 3,200, 2 weeks ago. Morton's Steakhouse, 394, again, not we, but 2, always 2. On nights I was supposedly working late or out of town. Transfers from our investment account, $25K 3 weeks ago, $15K last Tuesday, to her personal. She'd been moving money like she was planning a border crossing. I printed everything. The pile looked like the world's most expensive breakup letter. Enter the shark. The next morning, an email pinged. Meeting request, Kessler and Associates. Harold Kessler. In Boston, even people who can't afford lawyers know his name. The corporate shark. Hiring him for a divorce is like bringing a fighter jet to a parking dispute. Her play was obvious. Intimidate me into a fast, generous settlement. Too bad I'd met Harold 2 years ago in the Meridian container fiasco. He thought I was small fish. I found a buried arbitration clause in Section 47 and turned his victory lap into a very expensive U-turn. I'd learned 2 things: read everything and never bleed in front of sharks. I dressed for war, the charcoal suit Isabella picked out, the shoes that cost more than my first car, and rode the elevator up to Kessler's mahogany cathedral. He greeted me with the perfected smile of a man who eats confidence for breakfast. Then he squinted, and the color leaked from his face. "Have we met?" he asked. "Marcus Hale, Hill Logistics, Meridian Dispute." His hands, those steady, lawyer hands, shook just slightly. "Ah, yes, Section 47. We sat. He opened a folder with Isabella's name on it. Something in him recalculated. "She didn't tell you who I was, did she?" I said, easy as coffee. He deflected. Stood. "Have Isabella call me when she's ready to quit hiding behind marble?" In the hallway, I felt something I hadn't since the phone call. Control. The claws back home, I opened the safe behind the abstract painting Isabella insisted was important. Passports, deed, insurance, and our prenuptial agreement, her father's pride, drafted to keep the Thornton money safe from mechanics with dreams. I'd read it twice before signing, back when I was 24 and dirt under the nails poor. Rich people think the fine print is theirs, poor kids learn it's everyone's. Section 12C, the infidelity clause, her insistence. If either spouse cheats, the faithful spouse receives half of all business assets and investments acquired during the marriage, plus a penalty substantial enough to deter misconduct. She wrote the tripwire, then she danced on it. 13 years ago, I had a beater Honda and a rented toolbox. Now Hill Logistics had 12 employees, a real fleet, and contracts with serious importers. The apartment? Up. Investments? Solid. All. Acquired during the marriage. All inside 12C. I photographed every relevant page. The prenup wasn't a shield anymore. It was artillery. The burner and the boyfriend evidence is a scavenger hunt once you know the picture on the box. Her statements were a romance novel. Fancy steak, high-end hotels, jewelry. My schedule proved I wasn't at any of those tables. Then, in her nightstand behind the sleep aids, I found a second phone. A burner. It lit up like a slot machine. Texts, missed calls, voicemails. B. The messages were a greatest hits. Album of infidelity cliches. Can't wait to see you tonight. Marcus is working late again. Booked our usual room. The voicemails were worse. A smooth baritone, Brandon. I Googled. Brandon Morrison. Restaurant investor, gala regular, expensive watch. Memory of standing too close to my wife last year while I networked like an adult. The timeline lined up. Gala 8 months ago. Girls' night 6. The money trail 5. Screenshots, dates, photos, evidence fattened like a file in a crime show. The assistant. At Cafe Luna, while I Googled prove adultery in Massachusetts and learned no-fault divorce is depressingly indifferent, a woman in a nervous ponytail approached my table. Are you Marcus? I'm Chloe Martinez. I work for Brandon. She slid a flash drive across the table. 6 months of emails, texts, hotel reservations, photos, everything. I'm tired of hearing them plan how they'll spend your money. Why help me? Because I grew up working class. I watched people like Brandon chew up guys like my dad. And because your wife keeps calling you the mechanic like it's an insult. Blue collar, easy to steamroll, I'm done listening to it. She showed me a photo she'd taken herself. Isabella and Brandon holding hands at an expensive restaurant the same night Isabella told me she had book club. The flash drive felt heavier than metal. Chloe lowered her voice. They're certain you'll fold. Her words. Guys like Marcus always do. Something cold locked into place behind my ribs. Thank you, I said, meaning it like a promise. Back to the shark. 3 days later, I returned to Kessler's office. He looked older. I asked for coffee. He stalled. She's asking for straightforward division of assets and reasonable spousal support, he began. Reasonable, I said, laying down the prenup open to 12C. His tan faded to sheet white. The lawyer hands shook again. This changes everything. It confirms everything, I said, setting Chloe's flash drive beside the clause. 6 months, hotels, restaurants, jewelry, all paid from joint accounts, plus texts and voicemails you'll love. I played one. Baby, Kessler's going to eat that husband of yours alive. Guys like that don't know how to fight people. Like us. Silence. Then lawyers speak. Perhaps we can consider a collaborative approach. Tell Isabella her affair just got very expensive. And Harold, last time we tangled, you apologized to your client with a 7-figure check. Let's not do the rerun. I left him blinking in expensive air. Terms and conditions. 2 weeks, 1 new lawyer for Isabella later, we sat across a polished conference table with a harbor view that probably added a 0 to the hourly rate. She arrived 10 minutes late, dressed like a brand campaign and smiling like a queen, sure of her dominion. You keep the apartment, she offered, sliding her terms across. I'll take the business and investments. You'll receive a reasonable settlement to help you transition. I laid the prenup and the evidence in front of her. Her smile faltered. Her lawyer skimmed, went pale, and flipped faster. I flipped to the highlight. Section 12C, Infidelity Clause. Your idea, remember? You can't prove those aren't fabricated, she tried. I set Brandon's card beside a printout of his voicemail transcript. Her lawyer closed the folder like gravity suddenly made sense. Here's what happens, I said, standing. You drop the fantasy terms, you acknowledge the clause you demanded, and you accept whatever fair looks like to me. She hissed. You bastard, I gave you 13 years. No, I said, you gave me 13 years of lies. The Fall and the Fortress. What followed was a masterclass in watching a perfect plan lose altitude, denials, photoshopped, bargaining, no spousal support if we forget the clause, anger, her storming my office to call me vindictive, and a desperate last act involving the black dress I used to love. But trust doesn't grow back because a dress fits. In court, the prenup held like the vault door it was designed to be, by her father's lawyers, ironically. Our evidence was clean, her motions wilted. The infidelity clause did exactly what she'd insisted it do. When the settlement papers were signed, she left with a fraction of what she'd intended to take, no support and legal fees that could buy a house. Brandon? Turns out love wilts when it has to pay for its own wine list. Once consequences arrived, so did his exit. 1 year later, I stood in a new corner office, 20 floors up, looking at the harbor's moving steel, ships like patient mountains. Hill Logistics had 23 employees now, a lean fleet, real systems, and a reputation that opened doors. The capital from Isabella's failed campaign became fuel for growth. Poetic? Maybe. Factual? Absolutely. The office wasn't a shrine. It was a workspace that whispered, I earned this. Leo came in grinning. Henderson wants an exclusive 3-year budget deal. Also, gossip. He sat. Brandon closed 3 restaurants. Cash flow problems, and, Isabella's looking for a job. Retail. Back Bay. I didn't gloat aloud. In my pocket, a text from my attorney. Quarterly payment from Isabella. Received in full. Prenup enforcement proceeding as scheduled. Every month.